the MTDCNC Podcast, sponsored by Langley Alloys, unique metals for demanding applications, providing first-class performance and an international service.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. My name is Lyndsey Vickers, and I am hosting this podcast, and I am at Alcon Precision Engineering, based in Northampton. Now, we've come here today to do a job for Matt Sora, and in the prep work, I met Alex Hodgson, who's the business development manager here, and we're talking about the machines, but the reason we're doing this podcast is because I picked up on Alex's passion for engineering, and I think it's infectious, and I just thought, Alex, will you do this podcast for me? And Alex, here you are. Welcome.
Thank you, Lyndsey. Thank you for having me.
An absolute pleasure. You don't meet that many people out there like you. There's certain people in this industry, you know, when we travel around as MTD, as a company, we meet so many companies, but it's people who have that genuine passion at home for engineering, not just, because you said something earlier, there's two people in this industry, didn't you?
Yeah, I tend to find there's those that have a deep down passion, and there's those that have a real love for engineering. The people that would tinker all weekend for fun versus the people that want to go away and do something else.
And which one's you?
Absolutely the tinker all weekend. Absolutely the tinker all weekend. And that's always been the same for me.
Has it?
Yeah.
You're only 27.
Yeah, so I think as a kid, I was always the same. I was always finding something I remember sort of first Christmas present, one of the ones that I recall was a remote control car.
Yes.
Parents made the error of buying the Meccano set at the same time. I think that Christmas morning, I took the body off the car, took the Meccano set and already started bolting things onto it. So
did you really?
Yeah, I think I've always had that sort of desire to take things apart and understand how things work.
And your dad was the same as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So him and I glued to each other at weekends and all the time, really. And whether that was karting, sailing, it always involved building something, refurbishing something, and then enjoying the thing we've built.
So I guess that's from such a young age, you had a role model for starters.
Yeah.
But also someone that inspired you to say, hey, you can do this, you
Absolutely,
know?
yeah. And I think you can build something you can't buy. Whether you're interested in cars, boats, karting, whatever your hobby, you can always build something that is different to everyone else's bought item.
I've never heard that line before.
No, well, it's car people use it, which is built, not bought. But it is very true. If you want something that's truly yours, you've got to build it nowadays. Yeah.
You're building a car at home at the moment as well, aren't you?
Yeah, so it was a project of my father's that I've inherited, but really, really interested. So it's a GBS Zero, which is a Lotus 7/Caterham style vehicle. Mm-hmm. And because my dad had the desire to make it very different to everyone else's, he bought not it as a kit as such. Yep. He bought all the different parts that don't integrate the way they should. So it's meant sort of bespoke wiring, bespoke parts being machined, being manufactured, and even some printed components on there.
Just like the Meccano set.
Exactly, yeah. Just bigger scale.
So you're business development manager here at Alcon Precision. Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction into what you do here, what they make here for people that don't know? I mean, it's in Northampton, so there's a real hub for the motorsport industry here, isn't there?
So I think it's worth me kind of touching back on my earlier years of my career, because I think that's quite relevant to. So I actually started on the tools, very much on the tools. I did a BTEC at college and then went on to do a HNC. And that was at a different company, but it was a company that had such a variety of processes: milling, turning, SolidWorks design, CAD/CAM programming, robotic welding, a whole host of things. And what that really did for me at a young age was kind of realise that if you can design something, make something, machine something, wire it, paint it and assemble it, that's exciting. Being able to take a whole host of different skill sets and put them together to build something that moves, functions and has logic to it, it's really exciting.
How old were you?
So I was there from 16 to 25.
Oh, okay. So that's quite a long time.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah, really, really good. Now, so at that point, I was there for some time as their technical manager, so completely different to my current role, but really hands-on running the technical side of the business, which was completely out of my depth. But the more challenges you have, the more you learn. So it was a really good eye-opener for me. But I really wanted to know how the other side works. I wanted to know how the business operates, and no different to designing something, you know what levers to pull to get a result. The same way in business, I wanted to go to the business end of an engineering business and understand how you make that run.
You know, I don't think that many people are interested, like as in the other side.
Yeah.
You either are one side or
Yeah.
you're the other side. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to meet someone that is interested in how it all works.
Yeah, well, I think that's because you need both.
Yeah.
You can, if you've got an engineering business led by business people, you might be missing the engineering knowledge. But if it's typically engineers aren't the best business people, so that you need the both, and there'll be loads of companies of where you've got two brothers. One was academically strong, the other was an engineer that wanted to get his hands dirty and get stuck in on the machines. So I joined here in 2020, a couple of years ago now, so 2022 I guess.
Yeah.
So I've been here 2 years. Been working alongside Gary Edwards, who's our MD. Absolute brilliant man.
Yeah.
Really, really top man. And he's very similar to me, came from the tools, passion for engineering, and that's kind of set me nicely here. I think it's...
Again, another role model.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the right person to look up to and kind of go, I like the way you work, I like the way you operate, I like the business you've built, I want to be a part of this, really.
So the reason I wanted to do this podcast was really to inspire people. I spoke to you just before and I said, I just don't know the direction. And you said, Lyndsey, I could explain to anyone of any age why they would get into engineering.
Yeah.
Like your passion is there. So before we kind of talk about your role now, I want to go back a little bit. Where was that education? What did you do in terms of schooling?
Mm-hmm.
Where was the moment for you where you went, I'm going to go there? Because there must have been, when you left school, what did you do? Did someone say, I've got a job for you, or I've got an apprentice? What happened?
To be honest, I left school not being very sort of career-driven or ambitious at all. I just knew that I wanted to go into engineering, and went with that. So I went to a training agency, did some engineering tests, and they found the first company I worked for.
Wow, okay, that's quick.
And I would say throughout all of my education, I still didn't really understand how much I loved engineering.
Yeah.
And I think knowing now, I'd love to go back and finish it, get a master's or something like that, just because I now see why it's applicable to what I'm doing day to day. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was your kind of education. So really what you're telling me, that when you went and got your last job, that was your steepest learning curve.
Absolutely, yeah. All of it was on the tools.
You were just thrown out in there.
Yeah, so the son of the guy who owned the business, one of the shareholders in the business, was exactly the same as me. He's engineering mad, loves making stuff, loves buying a new piece of equipment, and we kind of gelled on that.
Yeah.
So they, on top of subcon manufacturing, they used to manufacture their own machine tools, very small machine tools, but that brought some really exciting opportunities. We bought a plasma cutter, which we'd never used before. We bought a CNC press brake. We bought the latest Fronius welding kit. And we ended up with a small factory, sort of offshoot of the main business, that had one of everything. One mill, one lathe, one plasma cutter, and then you started to realise that all of those skills come together to literally make anything. And that, with it, brought some really exciting opportunities to go and commission the machines. And we went to Germany, we went to Amsterdam. And we even flew over to Germany to meet with Mitsubishi at the time to look at their control systems. So it was just kind of, it was a really exciting period of time because there was a huge amount of hours. I used to do a staggering number of hours, but it was because we were all kind of pushing for the same goal.
Yeah.
And every hour you were there, you were hitting a wall and having to learn or find a solution. And I would say 90% of the things that were learnt out of hours, unfortunately.
Really?
When you're right up against it and you've got a problem and you can't walk away,
yeah,
that's when you found the most solutions. So.
And I think that's where that creativity comes. I think
Yeah.
we spoke about this before when, we were prepping for today's job, is the fact that the only real successful moments come from creativity and having that time to be creative.
Yeah.
If you've got that passion, that's where those great ideas come. It's not within the 9 to 5.
No.
It's the extra hours, that extra moment, that time
Yeah.
that you have in your own personal time
Yeah.
is where you excel.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree.
So you've had some quite impressive life experiences, and you're only 27.
Yeah, no, it's been really good.
So how are you finding this role now then? Well, actually, I want to go back from what you said, because you said I could tell anyone and explain how and why they should be in engineering. So what from your last experience that you've just said, why should someone get into this world? Why should a young person out of college, if they heard this, go, yeah, that's what I need to do?
I would say, first of all, it's a mindset of solving a problem. And that's whatever you do, getting yourself into the mindset of I can solve this somehow. You know, it might take you a week, a month, a year. If you have a personal problem at home, it's the same mindset. It's no different to, designing a market-leading caliper. You have a problem, you need to get to the solution. And I think that's been quite applicable to my home life as well.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned to you, I bought a house and it had some structural issues, and at the time, didn't really have a lot of options. You would go into negative equity, you'd be in a mess, and over a number of years, myself and my partner had figured out, we'd kind of put our minds together and a lot of hours, and we rebuilt it. And I think...
I'm sorry, but you rebuilt...
Well, a lot of it. Rebuilt a lot of it. But it's... the principle of engineering is just figuring out how to get to a solution, I think. And that's whatever you apply that to. So, the industry here, milling, turning and wire erosion, whether you're going into 3D printing or fabrication, the same principles apply. And I think it's exciting to create something. There's a lot of service-based industries or media-based industries, and they're all creating different things, but ending up with a finished physical product is really exciting. Whatever you're doing.
I mean, when we go out filming, it's we walk into a company and we've got nothing, and at the end we have something tangible. We have a story, and it's, for me personally, if you've got a new challenge every day, and I think you hit it earlier, if you are constantly being challenged, then you don't watch the clock. You're not going, oh, what time is it? I never in my working day, and honestly, I never check the time, because. No. Well, it doesn't matter. I've got to get my children from nursery, so there's a realistic side of that. But if you're enjoying it, then you're not checking out.
No, and I think I was nervous when I moved to Alcon, that shift away from being on the tools. I was really nervous that I would miss it.
Yeah.
But I think what I've realised is it's quite fun just to have a challenge. Yes. And I've kind of found, whether I was doing the design in my old job or machining something, up to now, whether it's quoting or looking at a new project, it's all challenges. And I think what I've learned is I enjoy keeping the brain busy rather than any specific part of it.
Yeah, well,
So I just enjoy the kind of, this isn't right, or we need more of this. What levers are at your disposal to pull to get that result?
And how would you encourage a young person to get into engineering? They're coming out of school, they're not quite sure, they've learned all about maths, English, science, and they've got a little bit of an idea of they enjoy making things. So what would you say to someone, and what route would you recommend?
I think there's two different ways people really go. There's the much bigger, if we talk about F1 teams or much bigger businesses, and then you've got the small little machine shops. I think you get a very different set of skills depending which way you go, and both are very valid. But the smaller machine shops, might give you the more old school fashion principles that you might not get from the more modern shops, just because their technology means they don't need those first principles of engineering. So I would say, get yourself in a business that does a lot.
Yeah.
So if you go to just a sliding head turning shop, then you only got the ability to learn sliding head turning.
Yes.
So I think when you're looking at wherever you're planning to join, is have a look round and think, how many different things are they doing? Because the more they're doing, the more you can learn from.
Yeah. I've never really thought of it like that.
No, and I don't. My first job, I never realised at the time how many different areas of engineering they covered.
Yes.
But when I look back, it was only because I was there and asking, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? That actually you're suddenly exposed to such a wealth of knowledge. And that's all engineering is. It's just, absorb as much as you can. As much as you can.
You know what's funny? Because, Tom Scabala, who joined MTD, he worked on a Herco mill it was a family member of his business that he was working for. But I remember meeting Tom, and we went out on one of our first filming jobs, and he saw a slider, and I was talking to him about this sliding head, and he went, I just don't, it's not something I know. And I went, yeah, but you're an engineer. And he was like, no, I said, I'm a miller. That's what, and I think for me, that was my first moment of realising that, goodness me, I've been personally, my eyes have been open to all these different varieties. And for him, in front of a machine, he was like, that's my skill set. I'm a miller. Now, honestly, he's on another level. He loads. But I guess it's just opening your eyes to...
Yeah, and I think it gives you a sense of naivety as well. I think at Alcon Precision, we bought a wire erosion machine a couple of years ago or a year ago, and that was for a specific customer project. Quite an old machine, so different to what we would normally purchase. And my reason for buying it was, how hard can it be? Anyone who has a machine shop or EDM shop, I have a lot of respect for you. There's quite a lot to it.
Yes.
I kind of thought you put a 2D shape in, it can't be rocket science, but it is. It's quite... And if you take that as an example, months of headache figuring out how to use it, how to program it, how to operate it, what different parameters we've got, wire speed, tension, all the things that really take some thinking. We're now in a position where we know how to use it. It's up and running. We'd quite happily take on a new job. And it's that phase is really rewarding. In the middle of it, it's a real headache. But when you get to the end and you go, right, that's another thing ticked off that we can do, it's really satisfying.
Yeah.
Really, really satisfying.
So what's your role now? Because we came to your facility 2 years ago and you'd literally just started and... You were thrown into the deep end because you went on camera, but you just started as business development manager.
Yeah.
You were obviously 24, 25.
Yeah.
And how's the last couple of years been for you? And what is it that you're doing on a day-to-day basis? And I know we've touched on it.
Yeah, so a real mix. I think I met with Gary, our MD, sort of at the time when I was looking at moving here. And Gary was adamant that he didn't want someone just from a sales background, because the industry we're in and the markets we serve are all about selling, machining and manufacturing really complex parts. So it's really difficult to sell it if you don't understand what you're actually manufacturing.
Because you say that a lot of the time here, people come to you for the parts that they don't want to be made because
that's it.
They don't want to make it.
No one else wants to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Complex.
And I think that's because that's the way Gary's always worked. That worked really well. And my role evolved from what was meant to be more of a sales role into more of a general, right, how do we develop the business? And a lot of that really, the work that we produce, it sells itself to an extent. What I think the business development needs to do is make sure that you're showcasing that and you're putting the opportunities there. That, every piece of work that leaves this factory, we're happy with, and it's of an exceptional quality. So the engineering team are really doing the selling. But there is a lot of value in having a direct link between the office and the shop floor.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's, again, can be lost in a lot of engineering businesses.
I think in many as well. Sorry, I was just thinking sales and marketing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
A blend of everything, really. Some days I'll be out visiting some really exciting customers. Other days in all day quoting. Other days talking with the engineers on how we can change the way we use machines and develop what we do, all sorts, a massive variety of stuff, but it keeps it really interesting.
You got any highlights, like big memory moments of just being here in the last couple of years?
I think some of the customers, my first job was serving different industries, so it was sort of high volume, lower cost components. Moving into motorsport and automotive, going to, I won't say the customers' names, but to, you think of all big brand UK automotive firms, going into these factories, it's a dream. It's an absolute dream. Seeing the facilities, what they're building, how they're building it, that's really exciting. That's kind of the highlight of it.
Do you get to travel with this?
Yeah, in bits, mostly in the UK. So we don't work with many overseas companies, but yeah, absolutely in the UK.
Do you get to go to the events?
Yes, yeah. I think Goodwood last year. So I visited Goodwood with Alcon Components. We don't normally take Precision to these events, but we've sort of jumped on the back of it. And that was really good fun, sort of meeting the bigger team at Alcon Components, and it was a really, really fun week.
I think you want to kind of show everyone the more glamorous side. That's because you can see a machine shop, but you don't always see the end result, do you? But when you go there, you're like, I made that.
I think that's the same with most machinists. I think we're trying to show more people on site here how much of a difference they're making to each individual car or whatever the project is, where that's going, what it's doing, and how much of a difference it's making to our customer. I think when you're knowing this from my first job, when you're on the tools, you lose sight and you just see a piece of metal. But we're producing far more than that.
Yeah.
We are producing far more than that.
So I guess it allows, if you're going out with the team, it gives them more of a connection to the component and more ownership.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You bought a few Matsuras now, which I know, like, as soon as I walked in, like, the smile on your face is massive. Just a quick one, not going too technical into the machines, but you've grown because you had single pallet machines and you've grown thereafter. So it's not just you going out selling, but you're also internally, you're helping to change the business in order for you to expand and scale.
Yeah.
So how have you done that?
With a lot of help from the team here, I think it's fair to say. I think engineering's something that changes like the wind, and you do really need to stay relevant.
How do you do that?
You need to invest, I think, is pretty obvious, is the first one.
Yeah.
But that's not just in machine tools, that's in software, in tool holding, work holding, tooling, whatever it is you're looking at, there is always something new. And in every one of those areas, if you drop any one of them, you're going to be behind the competitor. And I think that's really important. And that's kind of, because I have the excitement for engineering, I'll tend to say, oh, this looks good or that looks good. And the engineers here, the team might say, that's a stupid idea, Alex, go back up to your office. Or they'd say, do you know what, we could do that.
We kind of like that.
But I think getting the buzz and the excitement around what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why we're investing is really important.
Have you got an example of something like that where you've said, oh, we should do this, we should do this?
Yes, so it's something we're doing more of now and sort of in the background. But the machines that we used to make at my old company used a lot of Macro B, which is just a macro programming language. But it's really clever, and it's not difficult if it's laid out in a certain way.
Yeah.
But you can do an awful lot with it. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is get ourselves a lot further ahead with probing and macros.
Right.
So if we're running Matsuras, we're running lights out, we could actually be doing some in-process checks with the probes. We could be doing a lot more tool break detection, tool measuring, just using the macros to a higher extent.
To your advantage.
To our advantage,
Yeah.
Exactly.
You enjoy it. That's a silly question. What does your future, where do you see yourself in the future? Well, actually, before I continue you answer this, congratulations, because you've got a little one on the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we all know if we've got children how they affect us, especially in that first year or two. Where you used to have that downtime. No, don't be terrified. But where you used to have that downtime.
Yeah.
Well, for me personally, you don't have that.
Yeah.
However, once you go past that the beginning bit, where's your future? What do you want to do? What do you want from all of this?
More, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that the little one coming along is terrifying but exciting. I think it's terrifying because, unlike everything else, it's completely uncontrollable.
Yeah.
There's no logic probably to what a child's going to do. But just more of this. I'm really settled at Alcon.
Yeah.
We've got a massive opportunity to do more. I would like the brand to continue to build its name along with Alcon Components. I think the whole group is going in a fantastic direction. And I think there's a lot more to be done. I'd like to know ourselves as sort of the go-to manufacturing company in the UK, which is probably a bold statement, but we're capable of it.
It's doable.
Capable of it.
You also said, I love that statement, and we could finish on this, but there is something else as well as I think is quite important, is you'd love to see more apprentices coming through.
Yeah, I think that, my personal experience, the reason I was exposed to so much and learned so much was because I kind of shadowed the son of the boss of the first job I worked at. Sorry, that's a long-winded way of saying it.
Right.
But I was there, whether it was 7 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, and just... I think apprenticeships have tried to be really structured, and I think the old-fashioned way of just being glued to the person who's teaching you is the best way to learn. And I think that apprenticeships, people have got this mindset that we haven't got time to teach people, we haven't got time to show them anything. But if someone doesn't start teaching people, there's going to be a massive skills gap. And, I think we should be going back to get the apprentices in, pair them with someone, production manager or someone, and just say, right, he is your right-hand man or lady for the day to just watch and learn. But I don't think you see it enough. I think businesses look at it that we need to get people in and we need to get a return on everyone, but that's not what apprentices are about. I think there's also the stigma that, apprentices will leave you. Well, anyone can leave you. It's your job to try and make it worth their while to stay. I just think it's something we should be, and that's only because I personally have really enjoyed an apprenticeship, that style of learning, and didn't do that well in a classroom, to be honest.
Did you not?
No, not really. I couldn't find the focus. I think on my HNC, I think I had 8 modules. I think most of them were average. Design engineering I liked because I picked exciting projects.
Yes.
So I picked projects that got me excited, and then I wanted to put the hours into it. But I think if you're a practical engineer, not a theorising engineer as potentially, then getting your hands on physical matter and doing something physical is what would excite you.
Yeah. Alex, thank you so much, honestly, is just to get, I travel around, and as I said at the beginning, I get to meet a lot of people in this industry, and to see someone of your age, so passionate, and there's a few people similar to you, albeit not as young as you, so you've got that on your side, but so personally passionate about this industry is our future. So, thank you for doing this. Yeah, and
thank you, Corinne.
Thank you for going on camera today. You love it, don't you?
No, I didn't at first, but we're getting there.
We did well, didn't we, in the afternoon?
We did. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it was. It was a good day. Thank you, Alex.
You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the MTDCNC Podcast, sponsored by Langley Alloys, specialists in a wide range of exotic materials for any application for all your engineering needs.